It's in the notes.
So even though they're older,
I sent you an email.
Music wasn't the same.
Good morning. Why don't we get started before we move into the liturgy by singing Hine Matov, which I know many of you know, is in the book of Psalms. Hine Matov, Anayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Behold how wonderful it is to sit, brother and sister, together. And that'll get us flowing a bit. Maybe not as good as Kevin, but it'll get us started, and then we'll move service. Hine Matov Anayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Anayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Anayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Anayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. We begin our Yom Kippur morning service on page 292. Hear the word of the Lord when you come to appear before me. Bring me no more vain offerings, incense and abomination to me. Noon and Sabbath, and the calling of assemblies, iniquity with solemn assembly, I can't endure. Therefore I will hide my eyes from you. Though you make many prayers, I will not listen, so long as your hands are full of blood. Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do good. Seek justice, correct oppression, defend the orphan, plead for the widow. Seek good and not evil, that you may live. And so the Lord God of hosts will be with you.
Let us swell up the waters, righteousness is my stream.
This is the day of God. On this day we're called to the sanctuary by a summons as exalting and enduring as the everlasting hills. Prepare to meet your God, O Israel. This is the day of awe. What are we as we stand in your presence, O God? A leaf in the storm, a fleeting moment in the flow of time, a whisper lost among stars. This is the day of decision. Today we invoke you as the molder of our destiny. Help us to mend the evil of our ways, to right heart's old wrongs. On the Sabbath of the soul, inscribe us for blessing in the book of life. This is the day of atonement. We would return to you as penitent children, long to return to a loving parent. We confess our sins on this day, knowing that the gates of repentance are always open. Receive us with compassion and bless us with your forgiving love. Page 297. Ashrei yoshveitecha od yeholuk hasela, Ashrei ha'am shechalo, Ashrei ha'am sh'Adonai Elohav. Happy are those who dwell in your house. They will sing your praise forever.
Happy the people to whom such falls. Happy the people whose God is the Lord.
I will exalt you, my sovereign God. I will bless your name forever.
Every day I will bless you. I will extol your name forever.
Great is the Lord and worthy of praise, his greatness infinite.
One generation shall proclaim your work to the next. They shall tell your wonders.
They shall consider your radiant glory.
They shall reflect on your wondrous works.
They shall speak of your awesome might and make known your greatness.
They shall tell the world of your great goodness and sing of your righteousness.
The Lord is gracious and compassionate, endlessly patient, overflowing with love.
The Lord is good to all. His compassion shelters all his creatures.
All your works, O Lord, shall thank you.
Your faithful shall bless you.
They shall speak of the glory of your kingdom and tell of strength.
To reveal your power to the world and glories under your kingdom.
Your kingdom is a lasting kingdom.
Your dominion endures all generations.
Lord, you support the fallen. You raise up all who are bowed down.
The eyes of all are turned to you. You save them mankind.
You open your hand to fulfill the needs of all the living.
Lord, just in all your ways, loving in all your deeds.
The Lord is near to all who call upon him, and to all who call upon him in truth.
He will fulfill the hope of all who revere him. He will hear their cry and help them.
Lord preserves those who love him.
For the lawless he brings to grief.
My lips shall declare the glory of the Lord. Let all flesh bless his holy name forever and ever.
Bless the Lord at all times. Hallelujah.
Page 302. You are tremendous in power, O God, glorious in being, mighty forever, and awesome in your works. HaMelech HaYoshev Kisei Ram V'Nisa. O King, supreme and exalted, you abide forever, the high and holy one. Therefore, all who are righteous sing your song. The upright do well to acclaim you.
The mouths of the upright acclaim you. The words of the righteous bless you. The tongues of the faithful exalt you. The hearts of all who seek holiness sanctify you.
O King, the assembled hosts of your people, the house of Israel, in every generation glorify your name in song. For sovereign God, great and holy King, let your name be praised forever, heaven and on earth.
Blessed is the Lord, sovereign God, our Lord, no one else is like the song. The only one, the light of the universe.
And we turn now to page 304 and rise for our call to worship for Baruch. Lord of darkness and dawn, the God who opens the gates of mercy, who gives light to all forgiveness, be with us on this atonement day.
God of times and seasons, be with us this day.
Lord God of hope and joy, be with us today.
God of the loving heart, be with us this day.
Be with us as we look strength to be free, freedom to struggle against those who worship power, and power to resist all who would oppress us.
God of free right, be with us this day.
Ahava Avtanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chema Gedolah V'Yitera Chamanta. O one and only God made each of us unique, and formed us to be united in one family of life. Be with us, eternal ones, we seek to unite our lives with your power and your love.
We proclaim now your oneness and our uncreated unity. We acclaim your creative power in the universe and in ourselves, the law that binds world to world and heart to heart. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, V'Hod Malchutav, V'Olam Va'ed.
Be seated.
Shiftika, Vitika, Ulektika, Derek, Ushaktika, Uneka, Ushaktika, Yotayel, Ayulatata, Beneka, Ukitata, Zizoteka, Uishaka, Lamantiskaru, Beasitem, Homizotai, Eitem Dirashim Velechem, Ani, Arnaem, Asher Hoseiti Etchem, Meres Mitzrayim, V'yodachem Lelohim, Ani, Arnaem.
We continue with Micha Mocha on the top of page 308. We rise for the Amidah at the bottom of page 308.
Eternal God, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your glory. Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Elohim Elohim, Gomel Chasadim Elohim, Bekodei Yaakov, Zocher Hasei Elohim, who may be good on his name and him, so make no finger of their calling, Umatir Surim, Umayem Emunatao, Lijene Yafar, Ikamoka Al Yurot, Umidomela, Melakeni Dunaye, Umatir Yeshua, Ikamoka Harakami, Zoger Yeshua, Lechaim Berachamim, Lechaim Berachamim, V'lemar Shalahayot Baruch Atah Adonai, Magayeh HaKol.
Please be seated. I had mentioned, I believe, Shabbat Shuvah last Friday, that the Amidah prayer, which we are now in the midst of, is one of the flexible of Jewish liturgical rubrics. There are 18 benedictions during the weekday, there are 7 on Shabbat, and there are special insertions that occur during special occasions and holy days during the course of the year. The prayer we're about to read, Unetan Tokef, is only read in Yom Kippur, and we are going to first read English before we begin. And I would like to ask Lloyd to please read for us the English on page 300, and there are some responsive parts in the English.
On Rosh Hashanah, we reflect. On Yom Kippur, we consider who shall live for the sake of others. Dying shall leave a heritage of life.
Who shall burn with the fires of greed? Who shall drink the waters of despair?
Whose hunger shall be for the good? Who shall thirst for justice and right?
Whose tongue shall be a thin sword? Whose words shall make fruits?
Who shall be plagued by fear of the world? Who shall strangle for lack of friends?
Who shall rest in the day? Who lies sleepless without pain?
Who shall go forth in quest for truth?
Who shall be in the prison cell?
Who shall be serene in every storm? Who shall be troubled by the passing breeze?
Who shall be poor in the midst of possessions? Who shall be rich, content with their lot?
Repentance, prayer, and charity, these return us to our God.
Forgive the past, renew for tomorrow. May we go forth with rejoicing to read your great witnesses.
Unetana Tokef Kedushat Hayom Kihu Norat V'Ayom. Let us proclaim the sacred power of this day. It is awesome and full of dread. For on this day your dominion is exalted, your throne established in steadfast love. There in truth you reign. In truth you are judge and arbiter, counsel and witness. You write and you seal, you record and recount. You remember deeds long forgotten. You open the bardays, and what is written there proclaims itself, for it bears the signature of every human being.
The great shofar is sounded, the still small voice is heard. The angels, gripped by fear and trembling, declare in awe, "This is the judgment." For even the hosts of heaven are judged, as all who dwell on earth stand bravely before you.
As the shepherd seeks out his flock and makes the sheep pass under his staff, so do you muster and number and consider every soul, setting the bounds of every creature's life and decreeing its destiny. The Rosh Hashanah Yikayvun L'Yom Tzom Kippur Yechatemun. On Rosh Hashanah it is written, on Yom Kippur it is sealed. How many shall pass on? How many shall come to be? Who shall live and who shall die? Who shall see ripe age and who shall not? Who shall perish by fire and who by water? Who by sword and who by beast? Who by hunger and who by thirst? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who shall be secure and who shall be driven? Who shall be tranquil and who shall be troubled? Who shall be poor and be rich? Who shall be humbled and who exalted?
Repentance, prayer, and charity, temper judgments to the degree.
Return to page 315 and rise.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melech haaretz, Tevodo. Adirenu Adonai Aleinu, Ma'adir Shimcha b'haaretz, Baruch Tevodo Adonai.
Please be seated. L'ador vador nagiha, to all generations we will make known greatness, and to all eternity proclaim your goodness. Your praise, O God, shall never depart from our lips.
Lord our God, cause all your works to stand in awe before you, and all human age to tremble at your presence. Let all that lives revere you, and all creation turn to you in worship. Let them all become a single family, doing your will with a perfect heart. For well we know, Lord our God, that yours is the majesty, yours is the might, and awesome is your name in all creation.
Ubchen ten kavod Adonai, grant honor, Lord, to your people, glory to those who revere you, hope to those who seek you, and courage to those who trust you. Bless your land with gladness and your city with joy, and cause the light of redemption to dawn for all who dwell on earth.
Then the just shall see exalted, the upright be glad, and the faithful sing for joy. Violence shall rage no more, and evil shall vanish like smoke. The Lord's spirit shall pass away from the earth, and you alone, Lord, shall have dominion over all your works, as it is written. The Lord shall reign forever, and your God will sign from generation to generation. Hallelujah.
Yimloch Adonai Olam, Elohai Yitzio, Le'olam, hallelujah. You are holy, awesome is your name, there is no God but you.
The Lord of hosts is exalted by justice. The whole God is sanctified by righteousness.
Blessed is the Lord who rules in holiness. Baruch atah Adonai, HaMelech HaKadosh. The house of Israel is called to holiness, to a covenant with the eternal for all time.
We are called to serve the Most High. May we rejoice in this heritage forever.
May this day add meaning to our lives. Let contrition awaken our conscience. Our common worship unite us in love. Our memories of bondage impel us to help the oppressed.
This day of atonement, we pray for awareness, love and compassion grow among us, and this we are daily here.
This day find well-being.
Amen.
This day may we discover the eternal strength that abides among us.
Amen.
This day may be help to a life that is whole.
Amen.
I would like to invite Lizzie to the Bima as we turn to the Odah prayer and Yitzhak.
To
We continue at the bottom of page 320. Let us rejoice in the light of day, in the glory and warmth of the sun, the reawakening of life to duty and labor.
Rejoice in the light of day.
In the earth with its hills and valleys, its widespread grain, its fruit and hidden treasures.
Rejoice in the beauty of the earth.
Love of fathers and mothers who have nurtured our lives, with whose blessing we have gone forth to our own work in the world.
We rejoice in the love of parents.
In the children who bless our homes, whose eager minds and hearts are the promise of tomorrow.
We rejoice in our children.
In friends who share our sorrows and joys, in fullness of the abundant life, the serenity of old age, and in the peace that comes at last.
We rejoice and shall rejoice forevermore.
Our God and God of all generations, bless us with a threefold benediction of the Torah. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. May the light of the Lord's presence shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Lord bestow favor upon you and give you peace. Peace and happiness, blessing, grace, love, and mercy, may these descend on all Israel and all the world. Bless us, O God, one and all, with the light of your presence. For in the light of your presence we find the fullness of life, faithful love and charity, compassion, blessing, and peace.
Help us, O God of peace, that our deeds to inscribe ourselves in the book of life and blessing, righteousness and peace. Praise be the one who teaches Israel and all peoples to love to peace and to bring all order.
Page 324. We begin to be doing. For transgressions, it's God, the Day of Atonement, atones. But for transgressions of one human being against another, the Day of Atonement does not atone, until they have made peace with one another.
I hereby forgive all who have hurt me, all who have wronged me, whether deliberately or indifferently, whether by word or by deed. May no one be punished on my account. As I forgive and pardon those who have wronged me, may those whom I have harmed forgive and pardon me, whether I acted deliberately or indifferently, or whether by word or by deed.
We turn now to page 327 and rise for the Ashamnu, our collective expression of confession. ובכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהינו, שתסלח לנו על כל חטאותינו, ותחמול לנו על כל עוונותינו ותכפר לנו על כל פשעינו. Now may it be your will, O Lord, God of all the generations, to pardon all our sins, to forgive all our wrongdoings, and to blot out all our transgressions. We sin against you and we sin against ourselves.
For our days of truth, O Lord, we ask forgiveness.
For passing judgment without knowledge of the facts.
And for distorting facts to fit our theories.
For deceiving ourselves and others with half-truths.
And for pretending to emotions we do not feel.
For using the sins of others to excuse our own.
And for denying responsibility for our own misfortunes.
Condemning our children the faults we tolerate in ourselves.
And for condemning our parents the faults we make in ourselves.
We sin against you when we sin against ourselves.
For our fears of justice, O Lord, we ask forgiveness.
For keeping the poor in the chains of poverty.
And turning deaf ears to cry to the oppressed.
For using violence to maintain power.
And for using violence to bring about change.
For waging acts of war.
And for listening to easy expressions.
For obeying criminal orders.
And for sin of silence and indifference.
For poisoning the air and polluting land and sea.
And for all the evil means we employ to accomplish your ends.
We sin against you when we sin against ourselves.
For our failures of love, O Lord, we ask forgiveness.
For confusing love with lust.
For pursuing fleeting pleasure at the cost of lasting good.
For using others as a means to gratify our desires.
And as a stepping stone to further our ambitions.
For withholding love to control those we claim to love.
Setting aside those who eagerly serve.
For hiding from others behind an armor of mistrust.
And for the cynicism which leads us to mistrust reality and oneself.
Teach us to forgive ourselves for all these things, O forgiving God, and help us to overcome them. Let's do the English first. For all these sins, O God, mercy, forgive us, pardon us, grant us our Please respond with corresponding English to the Hebrew. Al chichatanu lefanecha b'rechilut. Al chichatanu lefanav b'gilui arayot. Al chichatanu lefanecha b'ma'achal uv'mishteh. Al chichatanu lefanecha b'sarut ayin. Al chechatanu lefanecha b'chachash uv'chazav. Al chechatanu lefanecha b'sinat chinam. Al chechatanu lefanecha b'nitiyat garon. Al chetanu lefanecha ba'azut netzmech. Al chetanu lefanecha b'kalut rosh. Al chetanu lefanecha b'viyui peh. Al chetanu lefanecha b'ifnilut. Al chechatanu lefanecha b'neshech ufmarit. Al chechatanu lefanecha b'chapat shochad. Al chechatanu lefanecha b'itzer hara. Al chechatanu lefanecha b'ritzat regalayim haraga. For all these sins, O God of mercy,
Forgive us, pardon us, grant us salvation.
We continue on page 304. On this day eternal, we come to you aware of our failings. Help us to cast our sins away and to find peace.
Source of our life, when our foe give us strength, forgive us, sovereign God, pardon our sins.
In your great mercy we place our faith. Your kindness is our support. In your forgiveness we trust. Your deliverance is our hope.
Source of our life, give us sin, forgive us. Grant us pardon, sovereign God, for we have transgressed. Lord, you are good, and we respond to all who call upon you.
Page 336. Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu Chosva Rachel Aleinu. Hear our voice, O Lord our God. Have compassion upon us, and with that compassion accept our prayer. Help us to return to you, O Lord, then shall we return. Renew days as in the past. We turn now to page 338 for Seder Kriyat HaTorah, the service for the reading of the Torah. Please rise. The Lord God is merciful and gracious, endlessly patient and true, showing mercy to thousands, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin, and granting pardon. Avinu Malkeinu chatanu lefecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu hachazirenu b'tshuva shema lefecha.
Our King, we ask you for repentance.
Avinu Malkeinu slachu mechal l'chol avonotenu.
Our Father, King, forgive us all our sins.
Avinu Malkeinu chamo aleinu v'ol aleinu v'tapenu.
Our Father, our King, have compassion on us and on our children.
Avinu Malkeinu kalei dever v'cherev v'ra'av u'me'aleinu.
Our Father, our King, may grant the sickness, war, and famine.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer Chaim Tovim.
Our Father, our King, inscribe us for blessing in the book of life.
Avinu Malkeinu chadesh aleinu shana tova.
Our Father, King, let the new year be a good year for us.
Avinu Malkeinu aseh imanu lema'at shemecha.
Our Father, our King, help us to exalt your name in the world.
Avinu Malkeinu kabel b'rachamim uvraton et tfilatenu.
Our Father, our King, in your mercy accept our prayer.
Avinu Malkeinu chanenu vanenu ki ein banu masim. Aseh imanu tzedaka v'chesed v'hoshienu.
Our Father, our King, be gracious and answer us. We have no merit. Treat us generously with kindness and your help.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu, Le'ol Aleinu, V'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Dever, V'cheret v'ra'av, Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Kotzar, U'mastir. Malkeinu, Chonenu Vayenu, Ki Ein Banu Asim, Asei Manu, Tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu, Avi Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu.
Baruch Shetan Torah, Baruch Shetan Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, B'Yushato, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Havu Godel Eloheinu Utenu Kavod Lora. Let us declare the greatness of our God and give honor to the Torah.
Ki kol b'shayim u'ba'aretz, l'Adonai ha'malacha, v'ha'minaseh l'kol. Al shosha devarim, al shosha devarim, al shosha devarim,
The Torah portion for Yom Kippur morning can be found on pages 343 to 345. I invite you to follow the English translation as I read the Hebrew. And this Torah portion, Atem Tzavim, which is from the book of Deuteronomy, is very, very significant in the Jewish tradition. We are going to be discussing this after the service during the study session before our break this afternoon. It's a Torah portion that is about the accessibility of our tradition. It occurs at a time where Moses is near the end of his life, where the journeys of our ancestors through the wilderness of Sinai are nearing an end, and when the next generation of Israelites will enter the land of milk and honey, will ultimately become the Jewish nation. And I'll save some of what I want to talk about our discussion. You can follow along. I think just be aware of some of the key ideas in this passage, where God, via Moses, is telling the people of Israel, these teachings are not so distant, they're not so difficult, they are close as your own heart, as your own breath. If only we would open and receptive, the themes I've been talking about last night and today, if only we would allow the power of these teachings and traditions to work through us. So please follow along, and for the first aliyah, I would like to go to the bima. Ya'amod, aliyah rishona, bat sheva le'or bat ron verut.
Baruch Adonai Hamarach.
Baruch
Adonai Hamarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'tan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
אתם ניצבים היום כולכם לפני אדוני אלוהיכם, ראשיכם, שבטיכם, זקניהם ושוטריכם, כל איש ישראל, תתיכם, נשיכם, בגרך אשר בקרב מחניך, מחוטר עצך עד שאב מימס לעבדך בברית אדוני אלוהיך, ובעלותו אשר אדוני אלוהיך כרת עמך היום למען הקים אותך היום לא לעם והוא אדוני לך לאלוהים כאשר דיבר לך וכאשר נשבע לאבותיך לאברהם יצחק וליעקב ולא אתכם לבדכם אנוכי כרת את הברית הזאת ואת האלה הזאת כי את אשר ישנה פה עמנו עמד היום לפני אדוני אלוהינו ואת אשר איננו פה עמנו היום.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Let's call our second aliyah. Ya'od, aliyah shniya, Herschel Levi ben Moshe Aharon.
Baruch Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'nosan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
כי אתם ידעתם את אשר ישבו בארץ מצרים, את אשר הבאנו בקרב הגויים, אשר עבדתם, ותראו את שקוציהם ואת גליליהם, את עץ ואבן כסף וזהב, אשר מוהה פן, יש לכם איש או אישה, או משפחה, או שבטו אשר לבבו. הנה היום מעם אדוני אלוהיך, ללכת לעבד את אלוהי הגויים ההם, פן יש לכם שורש פרה, ראש לאה, והיה ושמעו את דברי האלה הזאת.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נשא תורה ונס והעולם. עמוס אלוהינו ברוך אתה אדוני נושא התורה.
אמן. יאור עלייה השלישי מיכאל בן הרל.
Baruch Adonai Barak.
Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
ראה נתתי לפניך היום את החיים ואת הטוב ואת המוות ואת הרע, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום לאהבה את אדוני אלוהיך, ללכת בדרכיו ולשמור מצוותיו וחקרתיו משפטיו, וחיית ורבית וברך אדוני אלוהיך בארץ אשר אתה בו שם ורשתה. ואם יפנה לבבך ולא תשמע ונרחת ותשתה, חבית לאלוהים אחרים ועבדתם, הגעתי לכם היום כי עבדים לא העריכון אם על האדמה אשר אתה עובד את הירדן לבוא שמה לרשתה. עבדתי בכם היום את השמיים ואת הארץ, החיים והמוות נתתי לפניך. הברכה והקללה ובחרת בחיים, למען תהיה אתה וזרעך לאהבה את אדוניך, לשמה בקלו ודווקא בו, כי הוא חייך ואורך ימיך, לשבת על האדמה אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב, לתת להם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam b'tav tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Before we turn to the returning of the Torah to its accoutrements, it is customary to Misha Berach, a blessing in which we ask God to offer healing and hope to those who have been called to the Torah, as well as anyone known to us who is in need of God's blessings on this day. And I would to ask if there is anyone who wishes to share the name of a loved one or a friend or someone you know who is in need of God's help and healing on this day.
Eddie Von Filter.
Reba Feldman.
Thelma Kalis.
Armando Reese. Lauren Chambers. Evan Smith.
Doug Clark.
Continue with Shabbat.
May the vessel once before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. We share Please rise. Torah, Asher Moshe, Lifnei Israel, Di Adonai, V'yad Moshe, Putting together the Torah after the meeting is sometimes a family affair. So we are going to turn now to page 346 and 347 for the Haftarah connected to Yom Kippur morning. This is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 58, verses 1 through 14. A very famous Haftarah in which Isaiah says all of this fasting and all of these rituals and all of these going through the motions are useless unless you really mean what you say and mean what you do, and your expression of covenant with God comes from the heart. I ask for a fast of the heart, not just of your body. So, if you would be kind, Helen, as to read this after.
So Dan asked me to do this morning, and if I'm going to be in front of a group, I need preparation time to say in English. Okay. Praise be the Lord our God, ruler of the earth, who has chosen faithful prophets to speak words of truth. Blessed is the Lord for the revelation of Torah, for Moses his servant, and of his people, and for the prophets of truthfulness. God said, cry aloud, do not hold back. Let your voice resound like a shofar. Declare to my people their transgression, and to the house of Jacob their sin. Yes, they seek me daily, as though eager to learn my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right, and has not forsaken the teachings of its God. They ask of me the right way, as though eager for the nearness of God. When we fast, you say, why do you pay no heed? Why, when we afflict ourselves, do you take notice? Because on your fast day you only of your business and oppress all your workers. Because your fasting leads only to strife, discord, and hitting out with cool fist. Such a way of fasting on this day will not help you to be heard unharmed. Is this the fast I look for? A day of self-affliction, bowing your head like a reed and covering yourself with sackcloth and shoes? Is this what you call a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? Not this the fast I look for, to unlock the shackles of injustice, to undo the fetters of bondage, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every day chain. Is it not to share bread with the hungry, and to bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to clothe them, and never to hide yourself from your own kin? Then shall your light blaze forth the dawn, and your wounds shall quickly heal. Your righteous one will walk before you. The presence of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then when you call, the Lord will answer. When you cry, God will say, Here I am. If you remove the chains of oppression, the menacing hand, the malicious word, if you make sacrifices for the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then shall your light shine in the darkness and your night come bright as noon. The Lord will guide you always. He will slake your thirst in drought and renew your body's strength. You shall be like a watered garden, like an unfailing spring. Your people shall rebuild the ancient ones and lay the foundations for ages to come. You shall be called repairer of the breach, restorer of the streets to dwell in. If you refrain from troubling the Sabbath and pursuing your affairs on the holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and honor the holy day, if you treat it with reverence, not look to your business or speak of it, then you can seek the favor of the Lord. I will cause you to ride upon the high places of the earth, and I will feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father. This is the word of the Lord. Praise be the Lord our God, ruler of the universe, rock of all creation, righteous in all generations, the faithful God whose word is deed, whose every command is just and true. For Torah, for the privilege of worship, for the prophets, and for this day of atonement that you, O Lord our God, have given us for pardon, forgiveness, and atonement, for honor and for glory, thank and bless you. May your name be blessed forever, like every living name, for your word's truth ever. Blessed is our sovereign God, whose forgiving love annuls our trespasses after year. King of all the world, you follow the house of Israel and the day of atonement.
Amen. We continue now, page 356. Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, King Yisgav, Shem Avado. Let us praise the name of the Lord, whose name alone is Yontif. As I discussed last night, we all, and we know this, are living through very difficult and trying times. Between the pain of the economic situation, uncertainty over the election, ongoing concern about conflicts abroad, not to mention the dark specter of terrorism, ours is an era of insecurity and anxiety, a period of feeling beaten up and exhausted. Every one of us here is probably thinking, how in the world am I going to get through this? As a result of these serious problems and the emotions stirred by many of them, I fear that many of us have become like the animals in Martin Seligman's famous experiments on what he termed learned helplessness. In the psychologist's research, laboratory dogs were taught to receive an electric shock no matter what they did, such as barking or moving to a different part of the cage. The result was that the dogs stopped all action. They just sat still and accepted the shocks, as if the shocks were unavoidable, almost very features of their living conditions. In our day, many of the great institutions, ideologies, systems, and role models our parents and grandparents embraced have either been discredited or collapsed. The media and the internet bombard us with troubling, sometimes horrifying images and stories that eclipse any good we witness in our everyday lives. Nothing seems to have solid footing, and if God exists, God seems to be somewhere in hiding. If 21st century humanity appears dazed, confused, and immobilized in a seemingly expanding wasteland, much of paralysis comes from the feeling that anything positive we do will inevitably be met with negative reinforcement. So how can organized religion, Judaism in our case, play a role to help us, to save us from this paralysis and despair? And how might Shabbat, my focus on this Yom Kippur, aid in the effort? Presidents and policymakers can only do so much to restore confidence in us when we are anxious and shaken. What they can never do is restore vigor and hope to our souls. Through its rituals, rites, and ceremonies, that is the provenance of religion. And it has rarely been as essential as it is in our own time. Shabbat is one such religious practice. It is our anchor, our safe haven, our palace in time. It is something we can count on, a reliable, stress-free zone within which we can recharge our inner batteries. And that's where Shabbat gains so much of its power. It offers us the regularity of restoration each and every week, the opportunity not just for rest, but for renewal. Shabbat is a gift we can always look forward to, a salve for our soul in times of trial, a ritualized but real promise of hope, and somewhat paradoxically, a catalyst for action. Religion and ritual can only lead us to the starting gate, yet they can cultivate in us the tools we'll need in order to achieve victory in our lives. Hope and stamina, along with a large dose of courage, are the keys to human perseverance, to prevail over paralysis and despair. One of my favorite mystics is Menachem Mendel of Kotsk, the Kotsker Rebbe, a great Hasidic master who never tried to hide from or whitewash the challenges of being human. No matter how dark life may seem at times, the Kotsker's worldview always allowed for the possibility of hope. In his bold approach to life, if we have the drive to persist, the will to evolve, and the capacity to face and overcome adversity, we will move forward, even if it sometimes takes a divine hand to guide us. The Kotzker teaches that all souls descend a ladder from heaven down to earth, a different one for each soul. Once they have arrived, this ladder is removed. In time, they are ordered to ascend back to heaven. The Kotzker writes, some despair and do not even try to ascend because their ladder is gone. Others jump up and fall again and again until they too give up. But a few souls refuse to surrender, despite the apparent foolhardiness and futility of leaping and crashing back down to earth. We must do what God asks of us, they say, no matter the consequence of our actions or the impossibility of our task. They leap and plummet over and over to the ground until, in an act of mercy, God ultimately draws them up to heaven. The Kotzker's core message seems clear. It is through stamina, through never giving up, despite apparent futility, even absurdity in our actions, that transcendence comes to human beings. When we leap toward God, confront, struggle, and do battle with forces that threaten to hold us back from spiritual growth, we are striving not for the known, but for the unknown. For him, that is authentic faith in all its ambiguity. As the parable makes clear, there is no guarantee that we will not be wounded in our efforts. And human effort alone is not sufficient for the realization of transcendence. For that we need divine aid. The mystical ladder that linked our primordial souls to God is gone. A gap now divides us from the divine, a void of egocentricity and human limitation. The distractions that root us to the material world hinder our vision of the world of the Spirit. The reason that produces scientific knowledge cannot fathom a transcendent God, a God who transcends reason itself. Faith is more than a challenge. For the Kotzker, it involves, since God's reality is related with God's absence, the sense of separation we feel so frequently in our everyday lives. In the end, God is the only answer to our yearnings and our needs. But first, despite the discomfort that it might cause us, we must acknowledge, express, and work hard to satisfy them. The Kotzker makes this point through a second parable. The venerable prophet Elijah chances upon a hunter in the wilderness. Maybe it was somewhere in the UP, I don't know. He inquires as to why the man is living alone so deep in the wild, without the divine guidance of Torah. The hunter responds by saying, because he was never able to find a gate that leads to the presence of God. You were certainly not born a hunter, Elijah notes. From whom did you learn to follow this call? My need taught me, answers the hunter. Then the prophet says in response, and had your need been equally great because you had lost your way very far from God, do you think that it would have failed to show you the right path back to God? The Kotzker is teaching us something that is actually very empowering. God's presence has less to do with external reality than with our own inner lives. The path to God and a more redemptive life of direction, purpose, and meaning requires 3 actions on our part. First, we must acknowledge the inconvenient truth that we are lost in the wilderness. Second, we must express our deep need to connect with the divine. And finally, we must make a concerted and serious effort to develop that relationship. God is waiting for us, but if we give up too quickly, if we don't make a genuine and possibly lifelong attempt to search for God, we will remain befuddled in a spiritual wasteland. Where is God? The Kusker asks. Any place where God is given. Whether or not God plays an active role in our lives is ultimately up to us. If we can't find, as the hunter couldn't, the gate to the divine, it is not because we are searching in some places, but because we are not searching hard enough. If the hunter in the story put as much time and zeal in tracking down God as he does into chasing game, he'd find far more than food at the end of the day. We are, all of us here, hunters, and we are all lost in a sometimes hostile wilderness. Adversity is just a part of the human condition. It makes us stronger and wiser people when we are able to summon the courage, often with the help of community or the rituals of religion, to fully accept this difficult fact, and the stamina and determination to respond to it in noble and inspiring ways. There is an element of risk that is always present whenever we venture into new and unknown. At times, our journeys and challenges will take place in the company of others. Much of the time, we must face them alone. Yet individual initiative is the key to our success, and sometimes even to our survival. As Jewish sage Hillel instructs us, if I am not for myself, then who will be for me? To shift gears and drawing from his own experiences, observations, as a concentration camp prisoner in Dachau and Buchenwald, Bruno Bettelheim argued the inmates who gave up and perished were the ones who had also given up any effort to act with personal autonomy, who had fallen prey to their captors' goal of dehumanizing them and exercising absolute control over their lives. Bettelheim believed that even the smallest and, on the surface, most trivial expressions of persistent will, an inmate, for instance, deciding whether to eat a piece of bread he or she had been given right at that moment or store it away for future consumption, could literally mean the difference between life and death. It was the resolve to keep living and a hope that the ordeal would come to an end that served as the most proficient weapon in the prisoner's fight to go on. Although none of us hopefully will ever have to go through the kind of horrific experience I described, we all face hardships at different points during the course of our own lives. Yet it often takes a challenging event or an arduous episode to show us just how resolute our wills actually are, or can become if really put to the test. To achieve any sort of victory, we must have confidence in ourselves, and must tap into our capacity for fortitude, even in the face of struggle and suffering. None of this can happen without faith, not just in our own abilities, but in a higher power. Sometimes it's only after hitting rock bottom that we find this hidden capacity for resilience, that we discover that irrespective of the obstacles we must all inevitably confront and endure, life in the end has value, meaning, and purpose. Now, why would a higher power permit such tribulation? Why not intervene and prevent the fall from occurring in the first place? because as mortal, evolving beings, we need to come to that realization ourselves. The knowledge that we are only human, that we are flawed, that there is, if we open our souls, allow it entry, something greater that will lovingly guide us through our dark nights. That something greater is, for me, God. Which leaves us with really only two options. We can grope for a way out alone, or we can strive to endure our hardships and have faith that our divine partner will ultimately lead us to a place of safety. As a religious practice and discipline, Shabbat is that safe haven we can look forward to. It offers us the regularity of restoration each and every week, the opportunity not just for rest, but for renewal. Shabbat is a salve for our souls in times of trial, a ritualized but real promise of hope, a catalyst for action, transformation, and redemption. It is only after we pass through darker trials that we truly gain a more insightful perspective on our own struggles and start to develop the empathy for the struggles of those around us and act in response. For many people, it is only when faith serves as our anchor that we are able to summon the inner strength and the courage we need as we strive to work our way through the wilderness. For people of faith, it is not the will to power, but the will to persist that represents one of our highest achievements. Without fortitude, without the affirmation of life itself, no fear, trial, or challenge will ever be surmounted. Our persistence and perseverance can carry us through the most dire obstacles. While we need some measure of self-confidence before we take on new challenges, and though our initial inclination might be to act alone, we will nevertheless need others to help us. It is our capacity for trust, more than the wish to rely on ourselves, that save us when we are tempted to give up. That is the very heart of and the power of ritual, like the practice of Shabbat. When we make the leap of faith, when we jump feet first into the mystery of divinity, there are no guarantees. Will we reach the other side? Will we be injured in the process? Will we be the kind of person who stands paralyzed by fear in the face of uncertainty? Or will we go into terra incognita, trusting, open, and receptive into a brave new world of potential and possibility? In the end, that's what a spiritual community is for. To support us on our journeys, to guide us through our darkness, to offer us hope in times of despair. That is why we're here today. That is why, with your help, we will never turn our backs on anyone who is ever in pain or in need or alone. As our sages taught us, the day is short, but the task is great. Can you hear that song? May of God's will. I would like to invite Shannon to please give us some announcements this morning. I think we ended a little bit earlier than I was anticipating, but we have the whole rest of the day to study and pray together. So, Shannon.
So this afternoon, well, at noon, there will be adult study with Rabbi as a special treat. And then at 4 o'clock we will be reconvening for services until about 6 o'clock when we will bring our fast together downstairs. And there's a sign up in the back room if you haven't had a chance to sign up for an item or serving on setup or crew. Also, The Yizkor list is in the back, and if you have any names to add to that, please do so before our afternoon services. And Temple Jacob and Temple Beth Shalom are collaborating on a women's retreat in October. It is October 18th, I believe. And there is more information on their website, and there should also be a registration form back there. If anybody needs copies, please let me know. I can make one. And other than that, all for the food drive, if you haven't had a chance already, there's some additional bags out by the door. You could fill them up with either food items that are non-perishable or with daily needs items and bring them back. Betsy Guggen will be taking them to the women's center.
It's
October 13th.
Any other announcements? Anything anyone would like to share? I would just add at 12, we're going to have a discussion on this morning's Parsha, this morning's Torah portion, Nitzavim, and where are we going to hold that? In the office downstairs?
I guess it depends on how many people are here.
Okay. So we'll see. Why don't we say at noon, we'll take a break, and for those who want at 12 o'clock, just meet me here. We'll start here and figure it out. So let's come to the singing of Oseh Shalom. Just a quick side note. My very first student, congregation as a young rabbi, ordained rabbi, was in Westchester, very cold Reform German Jewish synagogue. It started precisely on time and ended precisely on time. My congregation in Manhattan that I served for years, we did things a little bit differently. We were a little bit more free-flowing. But the last time I used this prayer book was then. I was serving the community 15, 16 years ago, maybe 17. And we did Yizkor. Communities do Yizkor as part of the morning service at the end, rather than later like you do, which is my preference as well. But if we had done Yizkor this morning, we would have ended precisely at 12 noon. So you still have Yizkor coming up. We're just going to have a shorter morning service. So let's end with Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom B'Mrama, Oseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Yisrael, Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ya'al Yisrael. 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 May you all have an easy fast. For those of you staying, I'll see you at noon. At 4 o'clock, right? We will meet again at 4 o'clock for the afternoon Yizkor service.
German on her. Your daughter? Your daughter loves really? What kind of bread do you do?
Let's see. We usually do dark rice, white rice, we do fish, and Swedish.
Left side.
No, it's great. We just have to make an adjustment.
Well, it's really hard, yeah. My husband was here today. He's still retired. He took some baking and we have a cab in Wisconsin. That's where so we built a brick oven. It's mostly for pizza, but he tries to bake bread too. Yeah, I would say it is the right bread, but what you do makes a good one color. Yeah, he knows how to do the no, the long one. The long one. He does the breading like very when he comes later, maybe you can just bread. But I never had I'm familiar with lefse. Lefse it's not a Scandinavian, it's potato. You know, it's like a pizza, but for this area you will be familiar with it. It's either lefse or lefse. But it's not really bread. It's again, it looks like a crepe, kind of, made of potato. Sometimes you can buy it in Scandinavian shops. And I think it's some sugar and but I wouldn't consider it right, yeah, we actually brought two loaves of bread now from a bakery in Washburn, Wisconsin. A woman there, actually her father was from Israel, small world, but her mother is Norwegian. She had a bakery in Washburn, Wisconsin. It's Mayfield. She was great bread. Yeah, we brought, I don't remember what two of them, one dark and light, so I would imagine. Is it white? Right. Or else we are chatting. I was just oh, really? Well, so you liked it here? Did you bring a tradition?
No, I mean, I learned to sort of the technique of that, but
where is your family from? Poland?
No, I was born on my mom's side, they came from Germany. My dad's side, he was from Scotland. And spent quite a few years, well, from the age of 12 till about 2004 in England. And that's where I was trained as a chef.
So how did you get here?
guys only have 2 times, so we're gonna go home.
Oh,